It would have been likely very common at those major feasts in the worshiping of the Lord at Shiloh or later in the temple that the people in their celebration would have probably consumed wine or liquor. And I imagine Eli the priest there probably saw many people who did not know their own tolerance for wine or alcohol or other strong drink and became drunk and made fools of themselves in various ways. Or I imagine he saw many others who used it as an excuse to indulge themselves, not as worship to the Lord, but as worship of themselves, and to get drunk and to focus on themselves. And he was probably, maybe one of his pet peeves was to see those drunks at Shiloh, those gather around this tabernacle, this tent of the Lord. And when he saw Hannah there, he apparently thought she was just another drunk making a fool of herself. There are a couple of things I think we can take from this. One is that it is not good to presume another's fault or to assume the worst of somebody, to judge them as Eli did. Eli, though he is a priest of the Lord, he is certainly not portrayed in Scripture as a great priest. He is many, many flaws. And this is shown as one of those, that he is assuming the worst of Hannah, who is praying, pouring her heart out before the Lord. And we are called today to recognize those times when we might assume the worst of somebody else, where we might see one aspect of their actions and automatically assume bad intentions or assume bad situations or whatever else it might be. And we are meant to be very much on guard because, as Eli finds out, that Hannah is certainly not drunk. She has had no wine or liquor, but she is devout in a way that Eli himself is often not. She is pouring her heart out to the Lord. She is expressing her sorrow, her misery. She is asking the Lord for help and trusting in him. That other aspect, I think, is kind of interesting, is part of the reason that Eli thinks Hannah is drunk is because her lips were moving, but her voice could not be heard. She was praying silently. This apparently was also something that was not very common, that it was the custom to come before the Lord and to express in voice that prayer to the Lord. And certainly we know that the Lord understands our hearts. He knows what we need even before we ask it, and those intentions that we make silently are still heard by God. But there is, I think, an aspect within this context that can be a good reminder for us that it is a good custom to have, to pray out loud. It is good to be in that habit, even in private prayer, even when we are alone, or sometimes maybe especially when we are alone, to speak those prayers out loud. Not so that God might hear it, but because it is that full expression of who we are, body and soul, that we incorporate our whole being in our prayer. And that's part of the reason that we come to Mass. It's part of the reason that we have responses where everybody shares in. It's part of the reason we use our bodies to stand and sit and to kneel at various times. We make our prayer, our worship, part of that bodily experience. And there can be a good thing in that. And obviously, you don't always have to pray out loud. And Hannah certainly didn't need to pray out loud for the Lord to hear and remember her. But even in this prompting and this encounter, there's a possible way of understanding this, that the Lord sent Eli in this moment as she was praying silently. And again, in his own judgmental attitude, fails in his duty, but still prompts this question, what are you doing? And gets her to express out loud what is going on in her heart. And in this outward expression, this expression of her voice, it is then that the priest Eli blesses her. Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant what you have asked of him. I think it is a good practice for us who, I think very often are in our cultural world today, can be afraid of praying out loud, afraid of calling upon the Lord, embarrassed for others to hear us pray. It might be a good reminder for us today of how important that can be. And yes, there might be others who misunderstand or judge harshly. But sometimes it's exactly what is needed to change their perspective, to begin that conversation, which truly then answers prayers.